Hello, everybody. I'm back. Yes, I've recorded it. I finally recorded my episode. I have changed my episode, by the way. It wasn't actually meant to be this one, and the one I was going to cover is now going to be next week. So, I am covering today Mick Philpott, which is, I know what you're going to say, Lindsay, why are you covering this case? Everybody's covered this case. I know they have. But I just wanted your opinion on it, to be honest with you. I watched it and I was thinking, he is sick Mick for sure. Mairead, obviously one of his victims, but is she a victim? She is and she isn't she? But I want to know your thoughts on it. What do you think of this whole case? It's so sad, so sad. And I think Mick is as evil as they come. Please leave your thoughts below. And thank you all for sticking around. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel because it really helps me and it also tells you when I post. So before we carry on with this week's episode, I have a sponsor with MagellanTV, as I always do. And I'm just going to put that in right now and that'll be about 30 seconds long and then we'll be back to the episode, okay? So see you in a few seconds. Thank you to MagellanTV for sponsoring my episode right quickly. You know that I love MagellanTV, not only because they add up to around 20 hours of new content each week, and they have a massive amount of documentaries already to choose from. You just have to click and away you go. But they are brilliant. I love MagellanTV, and that's why I have them as my sponsors, because I will not give you anything that I don't use myself. So this week I was watching a documentary, or several documentaries, but this one was called The Lion Queen, and it's about a midwife. It's called The Midwives to Lion. So this midwife called Andi, she's from the city originally, but she finds herself in a completely different pathway. So she goes to the Glengarriff Lion Reserve and she falls in love with 50 lions. And then she has a new mission in life and she wants to keep this reserve open. So she decides that that's what she's going to do with her life. And she get a team around her who are her staff and volunteers, and they try to keep this lion reserve open. And you can see all the ups and downs of Andi's life, and it's such a great documentary that I highly recommend it to you. And there's also another one about sharks that I'm going to watch this week as well, so I'll probably tell you about that as well. So if you would like to check out Andi's documentary or any other documentary ad-free from MagellanTV, then you can get their offer of 1 month free trial courtesy of MagellanTV just by clicking on the link below. You can claim a 1 month free trial by clicking the link below. So claim your 1 month free trial with MagellanTV and support my channel at the same time. I highly recommend them and you won't regret it. So start your free trial today. Now, let's get on with today's episode, shall we? Mick Philpott. His name is Michael Philpott, or Sick Mick, as I like to call him. He came from a large family, his mother Margaret and his father John. Now, they had 8 children in total. Mick was, well, from a very young age, Mick had a lot of energy and he was a bit aggressive, like a bit of a... But really, overall, people just said that he was a bully and he was quite aggressive, but he never stopped being that way. He's always been that way. And I think when he was 18, when he joined the army, they thought this is going to straighten him out. A bit of discipline will teach him a bit of respect. But spoiler alert, that didn't happen. Mick Philpott is still an arse and he's going to die one. So Mick had already begun a relationship when he was in the army with a girl called Kim Hill. She was 15 years old at the time, and he was very controlling towards her. And his violence came not long after their relationship. He actually attacked her with a hammer, and he attacked her on multiple times with different items. And he was just really horrible and abusive in their 2-year relationship. Kim wrote him a letter saying, she just don't want to be with him anymore. And she ended the relationship. Now, obviously, for Mick, he was very controlling. This was going to be completely out of his comfort zone. And he was like, I don't think you're going to tell me what to do. And he went AWOL from the army and turned up at Kim's mum's house. Now, she was asleep in bed and her mum was asleep. And he broke in and he made his way to Kim's bed and he attacked her and he stabbed her 27 times. And he stabbed her so bad that it's actually said that he tried to slit her stomach completely open. And I don't even know if you can think about it. That's just awful. This is a horrible, horrible human being. Now, Kim's mother, she was asleep and then she was woken up by her daughter's scream. She was like, she was sound asleep and she woke up like, what the bloody hell's going on? Her daughter screaming. So she ran to her. And as she walked in the room, Mick stabbed Kim's mum in the back. And then he went on to stab her a total of 11 times. Now, he didn't do a runner. He didn't run off and, go back to the army or go anywhere. He stayed there and waited and the ambulance came. And he had the cheek to tell him, oh, I wouldn't bother. She's a goner. I've done a good job on her, he said. That was how arrogant he was. Sick Mick was 21 years old at the time of the attack. Now, he was arrested and convicted of attempted murder for Kim for stabbing her 27 times and grievous bodily harm for her mother. And he was sentenced to a mere 7 years in prison. What a joke. And that was in Nottingham Crown Court in December 1978. He only served 3 years and 2 months. And the judge, Mr. Justice Payne, who jailed him, actually said he's jailing him for 7 years and said that Philpott was a dangerous young man. Now, 7 years and a dangerous young man, where is that right? I don't know. Anyway, by 1981, Mick Philpott was a free man. And by 1986, he was a married man. He met Pamela Lomax and they went on to have 3 children together. Now, their marriage lasted, I think, around 10 years. And Pamela, bless her, she longed for a way out of that marriage. Mick wasn't a changed man from his time in prison. And Pamela later on told the police that she would do anything for a peaceful life. Mick was extremely violent and abusive, as always. Then one day, Pamela found him having sex in their bed with a 16-year-old girl called Heather. Now, Pamela, she then divorced Mick. That was her way out. But for many, many years after the marriage ended, Pamela was left emotionally, mentally and physically scarred by her marriage to Mick. Mick had met Heather at a fishing lake. He would regularly visit this fishing lake in Nottingham, and Heather, she was there with her friends. She was 14 years old when he met her, and when he started grooming her, because that's what it is, but people don't seem to know him in that light. They don't call him that word. So he groomed her from 14, and he was 37 years old, I believe, 36, 37. Now, his predatory behaviour towards vulnerable young girls is alarming, and it never stopped. But when Heather was 16 years old, she ran away from home. She ran from her family home straight to Mick, and then she ended up moving in with him, and Heather soon gave birth to her first child. She would go on to have 2 children with Mick, which were 2 sons. Now, Heather, she was so young, and obviously when she first became pregnant with her first child, she wanted to go home. She was probably frightened. She was young. She had this big, sort of aggressive, violent, horrible man. She just wanted to go home, didn't she? But obviously that would never happen, because women to Mick Philpott wasn't allowed to think or do anything without his say-so. And if you did, you would face the consequences of his violent, controlling behaviour. And Heather did face that consequence for wanting to leave. In fact, One time when she wanted to leave, he actually pinned her down and held a knife to her throat and beat the hell out of her, just to show her that she don't do anything without his saying. Now, he's just one of the worst. Heather, like I said, had 2 children, and Mick wanted a daughter. He already had a daughter with Pamela, but obviously probably didn't even see his children with her because, you wouldn't want your children being anywhere near him, would you? Heather and Mick were offered a council house in 18 Victory Road, the house that we're going to talk about today. Mick would often use coercive controlled behaviour in all of his relationships. He would isolate Heather from her family. His pattern of abuse would spill over to his next victim, then his next victim, and then his next victim. That was his MO. So one day, Heather had enough. She was sick of Mick's abusive, violent behaviour, and she was holding her son in her arms, and I think Mick wanted her to put him down. But she said no. And obviously you don't say no to Mick. So he thought that would be funny to get their son, who was 3 years old, in Heather's arms, in his mum's arms, to punch and kick their own mother. Obviously, Heather was distraught by this. That was it. She wouldn't take in his horrible, horrible abusive ways anymore. And she definitely wasn't taking Mick's behaviour, teaching their son that way. So she got her boys and she thought, you know what, I'm leaving. And she did. She ran away and she did the best thing she ever could do. She took her boys and she left him. Heather was really scared of Mick and she did end up going to the police. Mick had told friends that she wasn't going to get away with this and he threatened her through friends. So obviously, when you have children in the UK, you get child benefit for them, and all the money that you would receive for children and yourself would go straight to Mick. It wouldn't go to the mother because she wasn't allowed to have any money. It would all go to Mick. Taking 2 children away is taking money away from him. So by December 2002, after a really long battle in the family courts, Heather won full custody of her children. But in the meantime, in 2000, Mick had already met someone called Mairead. She was 19 years old and a single, vulnerable young mother. She was perfect for him. He moved her straight into the house and she was obsessed with Mick. She was infatuated. She loved every single thing about him. Mick, he liked her for a while and then he got a bit bored, and then his attention turned in 2001, I think it was, to a 16-year-old girl. Now, she was very vulnerable. She apparently had no family and she was a single mother and she was just 16. Now, he moved her into the family home as well. So Mairead, Mick and Lisa all lived under the same roof. Mairead went on to marry Mick, and Lisa, who was pregnant at the time with Mick's child, went on to become the bridesmaid. Between the 3 of them, they had 11 children and the 3 adults, what there was, all living in the 3-bedroom house at 18 Victory Road. Mick loved his life. He was very much the dominant one, and he had 2 submissive partners, his wife and his mistress, all living under the same roof. He had 11 children, so he was raking in all of the benefits that you are allowed in the UK for children, like child benefit and whatever else they're on, tax credits or whatever it was. I don't know what they're on. Now, the money went straight into his bank account because obviously he controlled the money, and his wife and his mistress both worked. They had little cleaning jobs, I think they were like part-time cleaning jobs to get some money. Their wages went into Mick's bank as well because heaven forbid they had anything for themselves. And he was, well, actually they say that he was getting between like 25,000, I don't know if that's in child benefit, but up to £60,000 a year in benefits and wages coming into his bank. And he lived a good life. He had a nice car. He had everything he needed in the house. The kids actually had everything they needed. They didn't go without things. But most of all, Mick himself never worked. He just took all of the benefits. He took all of his wives and his mistress' money. He did everything, but he didn't work. He used to say that he looked after the kids while the wives used to go clean them. But no, he used to drive them to school, come back and play pool or snooker. He didn't do anything. He just sat there and was waited on from when his Lisa or Mairead come back from work. He would not do anything. No way would he do anything. And because their house was a 3-bedroom house and there was 11 children and 3 adults living in it, Mick had a caravan wedged in the side of the house, sort of in the garden. So you couldn't actually get to the back garden. You had to climb over the caravan if you wanted to go in the back garden, I think. Now, this caravan, he slept in it. Mick slept in it every night, but he would have Lisa in it one night and then Mairead in it with him the next night, and then Lisa, then Mairead. You see where I'm going. Or any woman that he actually decided that he liked the look of would go back there. He did build a extension. I don't know if that was actually him that built it, but there was an extension on the house in like the conservatory. You think, oh, maybe he's going to put a bedroom there because he's got so many children. No, he don't. He put a full-size snooker table for him and his mates to play on. That's his way of thinking. But yet he longed for a bigger house. All Mick wanted was a bigger house. He thought he was entitled to a bigger house because he had so many children and he had a wife and a mistress, and, you know, there were cramped conditions. Who is supposed to live like this? I want a bigger house. That's what he wanted. So he went to the newspaper. So the newspapers, they picked up the story, and then other newspapers then picked it up. And then what happened was TV shows wanted to talk to him. So he appeared on the Jeremy Kyle show, which is a talk show. All these people used to go on there and say that, you know, my wife's cheated on me with my brother, all that sort of thing. But Jeremy Kyle got him on, and Mick was sort of thought of as Britain's biggest scrounger. He loved it. He sat there, and it didn't matter if you were being horrible to him or if you were being lovely to him. He loved the attention of everybody. He just craved the attention. He was known for taking money off the government. He did love the attention, like I said, and he would appear on TV saying that he wanted a bigger house, and he had a wife and a mistress, and they were all happy living in a house with 11 kids. They were very much sort of sitting there. Nick wouldn't let him speak. He would talk over him. He was very much in control and dominating, and everybody saw it. And it was just sad. It was just so sad to see, because you just think, whatever did I see in him? But that's the whole point, isn't it? Because people like Mick Philpott is a charmer, and he will bring out the charm, and his best qualities, if he has any, I don't think he has, they're all made up really, and he'll do anything to hook you in until he's got you, and then he'll just be him, and then that's it. You know, abusive, horrible, evil person comes out and you're already there and you're stuck, and that's how it is until you leave, if you can. Some people aren't lucky enough to leave relationships like that, are they? And some people can. But Mick Philpott is just horrible. I hate him. I really do hate him. Anyway, the council refused basically to give him a bigger house. All of the publicity he got didn't work. The council wouldn't give him a bigger house. Then one day, there was like, I don't know, a lot of things happened. So while he was on these TV shows, he would sort of sit there in front of everybody, his wife and mistress, and say, yes, he would readily cheat on these two people because he's a man and he's entitled to cheat if he wants to. He shouldn't be held down, and he would never be faithful to anybody. And his wife and mistress was supposed to just sit there and take it. And he just didn't care. He didn't care about anything, anyone, anything, nothing. It was all about him. Now, they say that their children was well cared for and he loved his children, but no, I think they were just money. I don't think he did love his children, because he only wanted them for money so he could live his lifestyle that he really wanted. Mairead actually gave birth in 2007, which was the 11th child living in the house, and that was Jaden. I think overall, Mairead was very submissive to Mick, but Lisa, she was a bit feisty, and it is said that Mick loved Lisa a lot more than he did Mairead, because I suppose she stood up to him. She had a bit of a backbone and sort of tried to stand up to him, but that don't always work. Now, Lisa, she said to Mairead one day in February, she was like, all right, Lisa, I'm just going to take my kids, 5 kids, swimming, and we'll be back later, okay? Mairead said, yeah, all right. So Lisa took her 5 kids, 4 of which is Mick's, and then she went, but she didn't go swimming. Well, she might have done, but I don't think she did. She didn't go back to 18 Victory Road. She bravely left Mick Philpott. Now, as you can imagine, if she was even thinking about doing this, she would have got beaten to, well, severely beaten. She would have had an awful time in that house. And it's a very small house as well. It's not like American houses are. The UK houses are tiny compared to American houses. And there's 11 kids in there. So obviously they would have seen the violence as well. But she decided, I've had enough. And she left him. Now, Mick, well, he was not happy at all. He was definitely not happy that Lisa left him, because Lisa worked and she took away her wages from his bank, and she had 5 kids. 5 kids make I don't know how much money that he was getting. Like, that's a lot of money that he's going to lose. So that's it. No way was he going to let Lisa just walk out on him and take the 5 kids, because that was cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching in his head. Like, all of the money was going. So Lisa, she just wasn't going to put up with his crap anymore. And she was like, no. So she went and she made sure that she went to court, and Mick went to court as well. And then on the 11th of May 2012 was a court hearing, so they could battle it out in court who was going to get custody of the children. Obviously Lisa would. Well, we would hope. We don't know, but obviously Lisa would, if that court case would have taken place that day. 3 months after Lisa left, after Mick went round to friends and said that Lisa was threatening to do something to the house, and Lisa had said this and Lisa had said that, and he was kind of putting little sort of ideas into people's heads, making out like Lisa was going to do something really terrible. And the whole time he was planning the thing that was the worst thing of all. Now, Mick, Mairead and Paul all came up with a plan. Now, this is the same people who had this threesomes all the time together. They decided that they were going to get a plan, and this was going to be what won the custody battle for Mick against Lisa's kids. He was going to win the court case, get the kids back, have the money. But that didn't quite go to plan, because on the 11th of May, the same day that he was supposed to go in court, now on the 10th of May, they went to bed, or the kids went to bed. Mick, Mairead and Paul, they were in the house, and there's to believe that they had a threesome on the pool table or snooker table that night. And then the early hours of the morning, just before 4 o'clock, which is then the 11th of May, a fire broke out in the house. And it started at the front door, and then it went very fast up the stairs and straight up to where the kids are. Now, there's 6 kids sleeping in that house right now, because Lisa's took her kids out of the way. 6 kids are stuck in that house sleeping. So the children, Jaden, Jack, Jesse, John, and Jade, and then there was Dwayne, all asleep upstairs, completely unaware that there was a fire. It's said that most kids actually sleep through fire alarms, which is horrendous if you think, good God, is that true? I don't know. They say that is. Anyway, Mick and Mairead and Paul all headed out of the back door. Now, it's said that they walked past fire extinguishers, and you think, what? Why would they even do that? Of course they wouldn't do that. And then obviously they've got to go in the back and they've got to walk out of the door. So they left the kids in the house and they escaped, and then they phoned for the police and ambulance and fire brigade and everything. They phoned, emergency services and was like, help. There's 6 kids trapped in my house and there's a fire. Please come. That's what they were saying. Mick was on the phone asking for help, and then Mairead did the phone call as well. Mick said that he tried to get in the house and he smashed the back window. There was a ladder up against the wall already where Mick said that he climbed up and tried to get the kids. By now, the fire had sort of took a hold and completely trapped anyone who was upstairs off from coming down. If the kids woke up, they would not have been able to get out unless they got out the windows, but they wouldn't have been able to get out because Mick previously, a few weeks before this, had painted the whole stairways in the wood with varnish, which was like some kind of boat varnish. But anyway, it's flammable. So that just went up like a whoosh, and then everything ignited. But it wasn't massive flames that took over the house. It was thick, black, dark smoke that was suffocating the house while 6 children was inside. Mick and Mairead, and I don't know where Paul went, but they were standing in the back garden, and then people started to hear screaming, obviously, because, you would, wouldn't you? The fire engine didn't come straight away. There was I think there was 3 neighbours. Daniel was one of the neighbours, Daniel Stevenson, and then there was Darren and Jamie Butler, I think they were called. They came and they tried to get in the house. I mean, they had to climb over the caravan, what was stuck in the side of the house, and then they made their way, and Mick was standing in the back garden doing nothing while the neighbours went into the kitchen to try to get in. But like I said, the black, thick smoke that was there was suffocating. You're not going to go in and be able to stay in a house. As soon as a house full up with smoke, that's it. You can't go any further. You can't breathe, can you? So the men had come out of the house, and then they tried to go up the ladder and they smashed, the windows. And Jamie was very much desperate, trying to get in the house. He was really brave and he desperately tried to get the kids. And Daniel, he was smashing the windows trying to get in and doing everything he could to try and save these 6 children. Now, 10-year-old Jade, 9-year-old Jack, 7-year-old Jesse, 6-year-old John, 5-year-old Jaden, and 13-year-old Dwayne was right there. And Philpott, Mick Philpott, the Mr. Hardman who controlled everything, didn't even try to save his own kids. 10-year-old Jade, 9-year-old Jack, 7-year-old Jesse, 6-year-old John, and 5-year-old Jaden, and 13-year-old Dwayne were all stuck in that house. One by one, they were brought out of the house. Now, I think it was Jade, 10-year-old Jade, who got out of the house first. She was brought out and she was laid on the path. And the ambulance, the whole street were watching as the fire brigade, brought them out. And ambulance drivers, the paramedics, they came over and they gave her CPR and tried to save her life. And then one by one, her brothers were carried out wrapped in blankets and laid next to her on the path. They brought out Dwayne. Dwayne, like I said, was 13 and he was in critical condition. So all of them went to the hospital. But sadly, Jade, Jack, Jesse, John and Jaden all lost their lives. Dwayne, because he was in critical condition, he was then rushed to Birmingham Hospital. Now, Mick Philpott and Mairead, They were told that their son, Dwayne, was going to go to hospital and they need to go with him. But Mick refused. No, I can't go with him. I've got to go to court tomorrow and fight for my kids. Can't go with him. And everyone was like, what? But the police were like, don't think so. And they insisted on him going up there. Now, part of what I read and researched, their time when they went up the hospital, when the kids were there, like when they were in the first hospital, when they first were brought into the hospital with the 6 children, Mick and Mairead were laughing and joking. They were ordering Chinese. They were being very inappropriate to women inside the hospital, or Mick was. And they just didn't really care that they've just lost 5 children. They didn't care. The following day came, just the early hours. He was supposed to go in court with Lisa, but I think that got postponed because of obviously what happened. But on the 12th of May, Lisa and her family member, I think her mother and father passed away, but I think she had other relatives. I'm not 100% sure, but it did say that Lisa and I think it was a family member was arrested because of this fire. Now, obviously, Mick had been going around saying that Lisa was threatening to do something. And so they arrested her, find out what's going on. The firemen, now they had come out of the house and then an investigation happened. It's believed that the upstairs where the fire was sort of headed and the temperatures would have reached 500 Celsius or 932 Fahrenheit. Thick black smoke filled each room, like I said, and Jack, Jade, John, Dwayne, Jesse, and Jaden never stood a chance. Never stood a chance. Family and friends went to Dwayne's side. Mick and Mairead, they were up the hospital, but like I said, they were completely inappropriate up the hospital. I mean, I think they ordered Chinese takeaway because they didn't think that they were getting treated fairly with food. Now, on the 14th of May, the investigation then turned to a murder investigation because the 5 children's death. But Dwayne, who was fighting for his life, he ended up passing away just a few days after the fire happened as well. He sadly lost his life as well. So this make it 6 children died in a house fire. 6 children. This is all Mairead's children. All of her children died. Now, this is why I say, is she a victim or is she not? The Derbyshire police, they were starting to wonder if the fire was started on purpose or if this was just a horrible accident. A post-mortem carried out, they said that Jack, Jaden, Jesse and John all died from smoke inhalation. And then a post-mortem on Dwayne said that he died of a brain injury and a combination of inhaling substances, which is like, the smoke and that. And then he ended up having a cardiac arrest. The police brought in a specialised dog which deals with arson. Now, the dog would go up to the area where they think the fire started, and if it picked up a scent, it would indicate to the people, or the police, should I say, that something's there, and then they would test the area. This is exactly what happened. The police sent off the sample, and it came back that there was petrol found in the doorway. Now, there was no evidence left inside the house because of the fire, but there was around the garden area. They found a petrol can, and then they found a glove. So the police are well and truly now suspicious of Mick Philpott because Dwayne passed away, making it 6 children dying in this fire. And 5 days after the fire in total, Mick Philpott asked the police if he can go and do an interview in front of the media and that, thanking people. And he did. Himself and Mairead sat there in front of everyone, just pretending to cry in their tissues and saying thank you for Helpline, thank you for this, thank you for that, thank you for this. Never once did they say, my children, they all died in a fire and I don't know how I'm going to cope anymore. I can't go on. But, thank you, mate, for helping. No, they didn't ask anyone for help. They didn't ask for help as in, help me find the person who did this to my 6 children. Mairead had just lost all of her kids in the fire. She's not saying, help me find the killer. No, because she knows who the killer is. And Mick knows who the killer is. So why would they ask for help? They just want to thank everyone and then they say, don't contact us anymore, right? Because we need to have peace. Don't think so. Now, there was petrol found, which would have been the cause of the fire. And then Mick, Mairead and Paul's clothes all were found with traces of petrol on them. So this was now one of the biggest murder investigations that Derbyshire police had been involved in. The police investigation found that the fire was started by petrol like they thought. And on the 28th of May, Mick and his wife Mairead were arrested for the murders of their 6 children. They were arrested for murder, but then on the 30th of May, 56-year-old Mick and then 31-year-old Mairead were then charged with the murders of their children. But then Paul, I think he was arrested for the murders of the children as well. But they all had their charges dropped down to manslaughter because it was said that they couldn't prove that they wanted the kids to die. It was basically a plan that went wrong. So they didn't really mean to kill the children. They thought by setting a fire to a house, no one was going to get hurt. So it's not my fault, It's murder. It's not manslaughter, it's murder. But no, of course not. So December the 17th, all 3 of them pleaded not guilty to manslaughter. So a trial would begin. Now it's believed that they planned what the plan was, shall we say. There was different sources. So what I read was Paul was going to go around the back and save the kids once the house was on fire, but he didn't do that. Mick, Paul and Mairead set fire to the front door, which was PVC, which melted, sort of melted, not completely away, because if not they would get in, but melted a bit. Then the fire went straight up the stairs and basically within minutes would have taken the children's lives, they say. It's also said that Mick, Mairead and Paul walked past 2 fire extinguishers. Now, I'm not sure about that, but nothing put it past me. But they went outside and they still did let their kids die. Now, I don't care if this is a plan that they thought they were going to set Lisa up and then she would lose custody, Mick would get the kids back and he'd get the money. That's all he cared about was the money. He didn't care about his kids. Never once did he care about his kids. Everyone says, oh, he was a good dad and he cared about his kids. Well, no, he didn't because he let them die. He didn't care about his kids, did he? He cared about the money. He never cared about his kids because if he cared about his kids, he wouldn't have set a fire to his house. And then he wouldn't have left them to die. He could have gone and saved them, but he didn't. He set fire to it and he killed them. He just watched them and he pretended to cry. That's not a good parent. Mairead was under his control. Yeah, I give her that. She was a victim of his domestic abuse and violence and controlled behaviour. She was. And she was definitely controlled to the point where she was doing anything he said. But when your children are inside a house that you set on fire, how can you just let them die? I think she was a victim and then I think she stopped being a victim. I think the trial began on the 12th of February 2013 and then Mick appeared on the stand. Of course he would appear on the stand, giving his crocodile tears and pretending that he was a victim. But no one believed him. No one believed him. He was so confident, but he couldn't see that no one believed him. He was that much of a narcissist that he thought he was going to get away with it. Now, the trial lasted 8 weeks. On the 4th, I think they were found guilty on the 2nd of April. And then on the 4th of April, they were all convicted and proven that they did murder all 6 children. Basically, they were responsible for the murder, although it was manslaughter. So Mick was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 15 years. Paul and Mairead were sentenced to 17 years, but with a minimum term of 8.5 years. Now, Mick is still in prison, and I don't think he'll get out of prison, but he is still in prison. He still says inside that he did not do it. And one of his mates who appeared on one of the documentaries I watched about 5, basically, he writes to him, I think, or Mick wrote to him. I don't know if he writes back, but it's said that they were pen pals, so I suppose that he wrote back to him. But he said that Mick insists that he didn't do anything wrong. He's set up by the police. Obviously not Mick. Mairead served 8 years, and then she was set free in 2020. And then Paul, he served 8 years and he was set free. But then he was then rearrested and sent back to prison because he broke the terms of his parole. So they planned to set fire to the house because they wanted to set up Lisa, like I said. Then the fire got completely out of control and they just stood there and watched the blaze go up. Now, the reporters said that they were completely, the whole time, like they went to the pub after the kids died, and then Mick sung Suspicious Minds, and then his mate said, look, everyone's watching, they don't think it's right, you need to leave and go home. They didn't care. Their children had just died, and they both went to the pub, Mick and Mairead. Then the brothers, Jamie and Darren, they were sort of thinking about it, and they were like, well, hang on, he didn't actually try to save any of the children. He didn't, something's not right here. And then that sort of made the police sort of stand up, I think, and pay attention. I think so. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, this was all just a plan which went wrong. Now, one of the people who tried to save the kids, Daniel, he said that he don't think Mick meant to kill the kids, and it was something stupid that happened and it all went wrong. Stupid is not the right word, I don't think. And you can't set fire to a house with 6 kids sleeping in all different bedrooms and thinking no one's going to get hurt, can you? Like, I don't know. He's not that stupid. Well, maybe he is. I don't know. It's just, this is horrible. 6 children. So on the 22nd of June 2012, a joint funeral was held for 10-year-old Jade, 9-year-old John, 7-year-old Jack, 6-year-old Jesse, and 5-year-old Jaden, and 13-year-old Dwayne. Now, there was a charity that helped raise some money, and this was the community that paid a lot of money to have the children buried properly, and they raised like £15,000. Before the Philpotts went to prison, they were raking in this money because the community was like, oh my God, their children had died. They need some help. They've got nowhere to live, and they tried to, they gave money. Mick and Mairead went to the city or in town, whatever you want to call it, spending their money like they were having a nice little shopping trip. They didn't care. These are horrible human beings. Horrible, horrible, horrible human beings. So the joint funeral was held and the children went to their final resting place in these beautiful white coffins. The teachers were there, the community was there. They were all paying their respects to the children, remembering them, saying how wonderful they was and how lovely and how well-mannered they was. And it's just such a sad story. So on September 2013, 18 Victory Road was knocked down. It was demolished by the council, and the community and the council all said that they will rebuild on that property, but that house in particular had to be demolished. Mick Philpott, I hope to God, is never, ever released. Mairead is released and she's free to do whatever she wants, which I think is disgusting as well. But there you go. But this episode, obviously I've waffled on a lot. I'm really sorry, but Mick Philpott really winds me up. But let's just remember 10-year-old Jade, 9-year-old John, 7-year-old Jack, 6-year-old Jesse, and 5-year-old Jaden, and 13-year-old Dwayne. Because these are the only victims to me, apart from Lisa and her children. These are the only people that we need to remember from 18 Victory Road. And Mick Philpott needs to rot in prison for the rest of his life. And I really hope he does. I'll see you all again. Hopefully next week I'll see you all again. Much love, everyone. Take care.